Welcome to Heart, where we break the silence, bridge the gaps, and bring real conversations about mental health to the forefront. I'm your host, Lee Yaffe, founder and director of The Long Short Road. My guest today is Rabbi Dr. Saul Haimoff. Rabbi Dr. Haimoff is a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in treating children, adolescents, and young adults with anxiety and behavioral disorders. He earned his PsyD from Long Island University and rabbinic ordination from Yeshiva University. He's program director and associate rabbi at the Jewish Center of Atlantic Beach and formerly served as head rabbi at the Brandeis School. Dr. Haimoff co-authored the Handbook of Torah and Mental Health, linking over 50 Jewish sources to peer-reviewed psychological research. With years of experience in Jewish education and community programming, regularly lectures and leads workshops for clinicians, educators, and parents on the intersection of mental health and Torah. Rabbi Dr. Haimoff, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
This is really cool for me. I read your book over COVID, and it had such a big impact on the way that I see mental health and the intersection between mental health and Judaism. So thanks for putting that work out into the world. It's really incredible.
It came out right before COVID hit, so it was
Right.
kind of like a bummer that the whole world shut down. But I was happy that at least people are able to benefit from it privately.
Yes. Yes, I hear that. So I want to start with a question I ask every guest. What is your why?
Wow. Okay. And I love the question overall of just, I assume you mean, why, what is your reason for doing things, for waking up in the
Yeah,
morning?
like, and also like what is your why for the career path that you've chosen? And specifically like rabbi and psychologist and the gap, bridging the gap between the two. So tell us about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
sure. I'll tell you a good story about that. I always loved learning and education and exploring the world and just trying to make sense of things. And I was gravitated towards Torah learning after studying in yeshiva for a few years, and in Smicha in YU, their Reach program, we take 2 semesters of a course called Pastoral Counseling, which is basically teaching future rabbis how to be good shepherds for their flock. And I remember hearing a lot that if you're going to become a rabbi because you love learning, then go to Kollel instead, right? There's very little learning involved in being a rabbi. It's more about teaching and more about really emotions and caring for people in need. One of the teachers, instructors I had the privilege of learning from was Dr. David Pelkovitz,
Mhm.
an amazing psychologist,
Yeah.
uh, kind of considered like the OG. I don't know if he's officially a rabbi, but Torah and mental health kind of guru. And every week we had a class with him. He was teaching young rabbinic students just how to handle people in crisis and families who lost a loved one, and Shiva and funerals and the hospitals and all those things. And that's so much a part about being a rabbi, and we're training you. And I remember thinking like, I don't, I love doing that. I want to do that, and I want to do that better, and I want better training. So after I finished my rabbinic ordination and got smicha, I went on to graduate school to a PsyD program to get my doctorate in clinical psychology. And I really believe that those two things overlap very smoothly. I mean, they're all about studying life and improving on ourselves and becoming the best version of ourselves. And I really find that Torah Judaism and psychology really promote the same ideas of healthy living and being a good person.
Yeah. I I definitely resonate with that and agree. So, based on your direct experience, both as a therapist and as a rabbi, like you really have boots on the ground in the Jewish community in two very unique ways. And I'm curious to hear from your perspective if you could kind of describe what you're seeing of the current state, I guess specifically of teen mental health, because that is the area that you work in clinically. Like, what are you seeing
Hmm.
in the mental health world right now?
Hmm. No, great question. I often feel in some ways privileged to have an inside look. This also could be very heavy and difficult as a rabbi in a community, assistant rabbi and a psychologist with a private practice. You really see the inside, behind the scenes, kind of behind the closet of what people are going through. And so many people on the outside, kind of present as being, you know, successful or having everything in order and together, and you just wouldn't believe the stories, which I can't really say obviously, of just how much pain and suffering or dysfunction or kind of skeletons in the closet that people have that they are not sharing publicly. And it just, on the one hand, it's kind of sad that so many people are suffering in silence and have to put on a show and a good face, especially in the Jewish community, to present a certain way. And that really people are really struggling with mental illness such as anxiety, depression, substance abuse, addictions, eating disorders, OCD, ADHD, the full gamut. And and these wonderful organizations, I really do believe there's more and more awareness about mental health issues and hopefully less of a stigma. I know I'm in my little echo chamber of therapists and who are all kind of rah, 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 therapy is the best, but still have a lot of work to do. And I see the ice is melting a little bit and people are more and more willing and open to go to therapy and more open about it. But just basically that behind closed doors, you don't know what's happening. And people who seem like they're just doing really well, it could really not be.
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective and thank you for bringing up that awareness because I do something that I hear so often, especially from young like men, right? Young men and women, teenagers and young adults is everybody else is okay. I'm the problem. I'm the broken one, right? Like my friends have it figured out. My community has it figured out. I'm the broken one. And ultimately, I think we have to look at the fact that like the full experience of being human means that there's more like there's more in common than we realize.
Yeah, and I wish we could talk about it. I obviously can't have, my clients meet each other, but especially if a teen is going through, I don't know, depression or anxiety or some type of mental health issue, and they feel so alone and so isolated, I almost want to say like anxiety, depression, everybody has that. You're in good company.
Yeah, no, definitely. So actually, okay, about the stigma, and I too am in my echo chamber of like everyone is making changes in the world of suicide prevention. And then, recently I have these experiences where when I tell people what I do, I have to make like a kind of a decision in the split moment. Do I mention suicide prevention or do I just say mental health?
Hmm.
And I want to be honest and tell people what I do. And then sometimes there's this flinching of like, what?
Right.
you know? And so I do think, and I agree with you that we've done a really good job
Hmm.
in the Frum community of lessening the stigma. I do still see it pretty often though.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm curious, what do you think we could be doing to empower the community? And I'm speaking now to like on parents and educators and people who are in the lives of these teens who they're interacting with every day, right? Like their therapists, the relationship might be super powerful and great, but they're only interacting for 55 minutes a week. So then you have this whole world of people who could be debunking that stigma. Like, how can we empower people to be doing that?
Sure, it's a great question. And I think so many wonderful organizations in both the Jewish community and beyond are tackling this issue of breaking the stigma. Really just talking about it openly. I often say that, as I work with a lot of children and teens, and they might come during school hours or right after school hours, or might leave a little early from school. And many of my clients, not most, but a bunch, still feel kind of embarrassed about where they're going. They need an excuse. I'm working with some teens who are in camp and sleepaway camp, and they have to kind of say they have a doctor's appointment, and then some the kid will be like, "What? Every week you have a doctor's appointment?" And if you went to a dentist, if you went to an eye doctor or a physical therapist, you wouldn't be embarrassed to say. And yet, we're going to a psychotherapist. There's some type of like, oh, there's something wrong with you, or there's something, you're crazy or you're weird. And I think the more we normalize it, that it's a normal thing to go to therapy, it's beneficial. I think people really could benefit from therapy, even if they don't have a diagnosed condition. We just kind of make it more kind of run of the mill for all the other services that people are open about. And especially when people and it's very brave to do this. I'm not saying it's easy, but when people are open about their own struggles, either with suicidal thinking or any type of mental health issue, especially if that person is considered popular or successful or just looked up to as a role model, it makes everyone else feel better. Oh, wow, he has, this problem too. That's, that makes it kind of not so bad or to talk about.
Right. Yeah, we do need, I think, to bring back like the human aspect to this.
Yeah.
Right. Something that I quote often is that being from doesn't exempt us from being human.
I love that.
And I think we forget that.
Mm.
That like we have, of course, we have the blueprint and we have Torah and we have Hashem and we have community, but like doesn't mean we're not going to struggle.
And I'll even say, we might get to this a little bit later, but one thing I love to do is kind of psychoanalyze personalities from Tanakh and kind
Oh,
of,
I would love, can we do that? I would
oh, it's so
love
fun, right?
to.
Kind of
Oh,
put them
that's
on the
so
couch,
great.
as I like to say. And people really like it. It really humanizes them. Some people find it controversial, but yeah, the stories from Tanakh are incredibly rich with mental health content to analyze.
Yeah. Okay. Please say more on that. I'll come back to my other questions. I'm curious.
Okay, sure. Yeah, my favorite thing to talk about. Just looking through the Parsha and looking through, just the things that we learn in school. I started off my journey. The first time I ever discovered this was one Yom Kippur, a bunch of years ago. Sitting in shul Yom Kippur afternoon, and we're reading the story of Yonah, right? Jonah and the whale, and it's a kid story. He gets swallowed by the whale, gets spit up, and tshuva and all that. And I was reading it with a more of a psychology lens, and I really kind of dawned on me. I'm like, is Yonah depressed? I mean, he's sleeping a lot. He's pretty suicidal. Not once but twice. He kind of wishes to be dead. He tells the crew members to throw him overboard. I mean, he's not doing well. We got to get him some help. And there's a lot more to talk about. There's so many symptoms there that are present. He has no motivation. He has poor self-esteem. He's actually a pretty good prophet. I mean, he's amazing. He succeeds in getting a whole non-Jewish city to do tshuva. He might be one of the best prophets who ever lived. And even still, he's like, what's the point? It doesn't even matter. You know.
Wow. The piece that I just put together as you were saying that is the both and. Because
Mhm.
I've always focused on the fact that Yonah was depressed.
Mhm.
But there's that second piece. He's depressed and he's doing
Yeah, he's high functioning depressed this
high
week.
functioning,
Yeah.
right? Wow.
Yeah, he goes to, at first he doesn't want to go to work, and God's kind of like waking him up, kind of, let's go, get up. Cool. There's a lot of textual analysis here too, where God's always doing words of going up, alay, go up, and Yonah's always going down. Yarad, he goes down to the, so it's an up and down thing. And yeah, he kind of succeeds, and then he's still depressed, and you see in his language, he says, I'm going to paraphrase, like, "To miti michayai," I'd rather be dead than alive.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
You
fascinating.
read that in Yom Kippur, you read it on the holiest, most intense day of the year, right before Ne'ilah. Like, why? What's the message there?
Okay, so I'm curious. What is the message there?
I'll tell you what I think. It's about your first question about your why.
Yeah.
That we have to believe that God is calling out to all of us every single morning. Saying our name, saying, "Kum, get up," and I have a mission for you. I have a job for you. Only you. You are the best for this job. And Yona's kind of the anti-hero. He's saying, pick someone else for your story. I don't want to be the hero of your story. Just leave me alone. Right? I just want to sleep and do my thing. And Yom Kippur, we daven not just for Chaim, but Chaim Shel Tova, Chaim Shel Bracha. We want to actually feel alive. And so many people that I talk to and I work with, they're walking zombies. They don't feel alive. They feel dead inside, and they need to feel some chiyus, as we call it, like some type of purpose or mission. And I think that's kind of what Yom Kippur is all about, is recalibrating our priorities and what's important in life. So I think Yonah is the perfect story for that.
Wow. That just made me I'm actually getting like emotional. That made me emotional to hear because like thinking particularly of people who I'm working with right now who as you're sharing this and like wow, they like if the whole reason of us doing this conversation today was so they could hear that message, Dainu.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a very powerful message, and
Wow.
and it's in our Torah, and it's I guess it's kind of coming up on my mind. It's one of the closest holidays, so it's relevant.
Yeah. No, and just that awareness that that each of us has that
Yeah.
ability to tap into that.
Yeah.
So then here's the question though, practically speaking, because I know that I'll speak to people who are feeling all of those symptoms. How do we help? I'm trying to think about how to phrase this question in a way that's not like biting off more than we can chew, but I just,
Go for it.
you know, the people who are in that state of no motivation and no desire to live and struggling to make sense of whether they have meaning or purpose. I guess what's the first step that someone who's in that position could take
Yeah.
as if the lack of one of the biggest issues that I see is like if you have a lack of motivation, then picking up the phone and starting to call therapists to see what their availability is and if they take your insurance and
Mm. Yeah.
like they're not doing that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes, I'll give you two answers. One is kind of the overall, more kind of philosophical or inspirational kind of answer, and the other one's like the nitty-gritty kind of detailed and therapeutic answer. So the first one is, a life worth living. That some psychologists talk about how therapy is the goal of that is to give everyone needs a life worth living of what's the point, or why am I here, or why am I needed? I remember doing a risk assessment when I worked at a college counseling center, and I asked this young woman, she endorsed some suicidal thinking, and I said, "What's stopping you from doing it? What's your reason for not doing it?" Which is a very important question. And she said, "Oh, I have a dog. I'm like, who's gonna feed him and take care of him?" And I was thinking, like, wow, I wouldn't have guessed that, but for her, that was so important. Is that someone or something needed her and was relying on her, and she just needed to be alive for that.
Yeah.
Uh, so people need to be able to answer that question and to be able to really the basic human need that we all crave is to feel like we matter and that our existence is acknowledged. I
Mhm.
often point to social media. If someone, makes a post on, it used to be Facebook or Instagram or any of those, and nobody, likes it, it's almost like if a tree falls in the forest, it doesn't make a sound, like it just doesn't exist. They just want someone to say, like, I'm here. Does anyone notice me? Would everyone even care if I was gone? That's really kind of what it comes down to.
Right.
So again, easier said than done. That takes a lot of work and a lot of kind of, I guess, therapy to be able to really get to that place. But from a behavioral standpoint, there's something called behavioral activation, which is a very powerful technique in therapy. It's actually the first entry in my book is about achrei pu'ala nimshachim halavava, which means that the feelings are dragged by the actions. And this
Mhm.
idea of fake it till you make it, that even if you don't feel it, do it anyway, and then the feelings will come along
Right.
with it. So I'll try and meet my clients where they're at. If whatever they could do, if it's shave, change out of your pajamas, take a shower, go outside and just take your dog for a walk, just do a little bit of something to activate yourself
Yes.
towards, you know, a functional life.
Yes. I appreciate that you're specifying that it should be small things.
Yeah.
Like
Tiny things.
tiny,
Yeah.
because often people be like, great, what's that like huge step that I'm taking on
Mhm.
my healing journey that's going to cure my suicidal ideation and it's going to fix. It's like you got to start with like a micro movement.
Absolutely right. Just getting out of their room might be a step in the right direction. So I'm looking for those micro movements towards healthy living.
Right. Right. And yeah, I appreciate that you are reiterating that because
Yeah.
I think that people don't recognize the importance.
Mhm.
Because I think also like the world that we're in an instant world. You get everything is so accessible and easy, and there's social media and Amazon and Instacart, and it's like, okay, shouldn't I be able to like Amazon Prime my
Right.
healing?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah, they see everyone else doing well, and they sometimes feel embarrassed or ashamed. I really am a cheerleader for my clients if they are just showing up to therapy or just doing little things out of their comfort zone. I'm like, kind of, you're doing amazing, keep it up. This is great progress. And they're like, it's silly that you're so proud of me for just coming here or just getting out of bed. I'm like, yeah, I am, because that's actually very difficult for you, and we have to celebrate the wins.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm.
I'm right there with you. So I have a question that I kind of want to frame within the context of Torah.
Sure.
So obviously, I believe and I know that the Torah is the blueprint for our life, and that there are so many Torah-based values that support a life worth living. And I mean, like that, what create helps us create more meaning than Torah.
Right.
I do also see that many people who are struggling with mental health conditions also struggle with now feeling guilt about not being able to live in the level of frumkeit that they're used to, or feeling more anxiety about it, or feeling a sense of like religious shame, either from their education or from the community. So how can we navigate that or like support people who are navigating that? I know for me, right, like I'm a frum woman,
Hmm.
and I live a Torah true life, and I also know that not every person that I'm working with is ready to bring Torah into it because maybe they feel like they've been burnt by the system, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. But that last point is very relevant. There usually some type of historical event or experiential component that kind of led them to this negative association towards religion. I do get I love talking to people about religion. I get a lot of referrals from community for people who are struggling or have questions, or there is a lot of Jewish guilt that people feel about being a bad Jew. I never impose or project my own values onto my clients as a right trained therapist and psychologist. I know that, and I even tell them, like, as a psychologist, I do not care if you keep jobs or any of those things or whatever kind of sins that you do. If you care, if that's something that matters to you, I'm happy to talk to you about it and help you figure it out. But we do discuss, there are a lot of heavy feelings that people have about religion. They feel guilty. They feel like God is angry at them. They feel like they don't find any meaning out of religion. Or, you know, in the worst case scenario, they have a lot of anger and hate towards specific people or ideas in religion, usually because of something bad that happened to them that they don't even want to think about any type of religious practice.
Yeah.
So most of the work is just talking about it, kind of making safe space to explore those feelings. And I tell my clients, anything is fair game. You could say whatever you want. I've heard it all before. I've thought it all before. Nothing will shock me or scare me.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's kind of nice for them to be able to open up about those things.
I was gonna say it's I think it's important to normalize for people that like we're allowed to feel angry.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like I remember saying to someone once, a young person who I was speaking to, and they said to me, I'm so angry at Hashem and I feel so bad saying it. I was like, Hashem can handle it.
right. That's good.
He can
Yeah.
handle it. Like he created anger. I think he can handle your feeling of anger.
Yeah. You're not the first person in history to ever be angry at God either.
Definitely
Yeah.
not. Were there, I'm trying to think, is there any, now I'm totally blanking and I'm embarrassed, but are there expressions of like biblical figures expressing anger to Hashem? There
Yeah.
has to be.
Sure. And again, this is my favorite thing to do is just to kind of look for the paradigms of these different feelings, relationships in Tanakh. The one that came to my mind right away was Chana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
She's
Right.
bitter. She's pretty angry, at God. And for anyone who's struggling with infertility, I'm sure they kind of could relate to that. She's jealous of other people, and the Gemara goes into, we have like the stories from Tanakh, and then there's Chazal, there's Midrashim, and Gemaras that kind of give more of the backstory. So there's a Gemara in Brachos that really details her whole conversation with Hashem, and she's really, she's like hurling her words at him. Chazal say she's kind of like throwing arrows at him, and she's considered a big. We also read her story on Rosh Hashanah, right? So
Right. I love that. And I wonder if you, I'm just like throwing this out there, if you have another one to share with the audience before we go to the next
Yeah,
question.
oh, so many. Trying to pick a good one. There's so many. Even well, first in graduate school, I wrote like all of my papers on like Torah stuff. I did a whole family therapy project. We had to do a genogram, which is basically like a family tree with all these different symbols and relationships. And I did the Abrahamic family of
Wow,
basically,
cool.
yeah, almost. Yeah, it was great. I got an A in the paper, but my professors were like, Saul, could you like cool it a little bit with like all the Torah stuff? Like I haven't learned this much Bible since I've been in like a since I went to church as a kid or something like that. But a lot of that stuff I did end up in my book. But there's so much in the Torah. The Torah airs out the dirty laundry. I mean, we see all of the all the family drama. So there's a lot to say there. I guess one that's kind of a simple, easy one that I like to speak about is Noach and PTSD. Again, we know about Noach and the flood and the rainbow and the animals and the kids come home with their rainbow cookies and all that fun stuff. But there's a dark part of the story is like he plants a vineyard, he gets drunk, and the rest of his life, the rest of the story, he's just kind of checked out.
Yeah.
He's done. And it reminds me of like the survivor's guilt of people post-Holocaust who are just they had to rebuild the world from scratch in like a new land. And many of them kind of said, like, what else do you want from me, God? Like I survived, I got through it, and now, I'm dissociating.
My mind is like blown right now.
I love it. Yeah, this is
Usually people go to like Noach was an addict,
mm,
vineyard, and if we look at addiction as a symptom of the pain,
right.
then you have to look at what's causing the pain,
Yeah.
post stress disorder. Wow.
Yeah, like what he went through. His whole world was destroyed. And, and God's telling him to start over from scratch. And he's the paradigm too. He's the first person to ever get drunk in the Torah. So
Right.
that's kind of like the model, the source, so to speak, for all kind of future people is it's in response to something. It's filling a hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Which a lot of people, again, going back to what we were saying before about how we've done a pretty good job in the frum community, I think, of like debunking a lot of stigma and being more open about it. Things, I think still, and maybe this is because, again, like this is the bubble I'm in, it feels like addiction and suicide are still
Mm.
very misunderstood and very taboo. Like, I spoke at a training recently where the question came up about what if someone is struggling with addiction. And I'm not saying this to blame the person who's asking the question, but I could tell from the terminology that this person was using that there's this association with people who struggle with addiction as like being dirty and bad and incapable. Like, why do they keep choosing this? And it's like, it's so I don't know. Could you speak to that a
Yeah,
little?
I was going to exactly say that exact point about I think what it is that subconsciously we kind of assign blame and fault to them or to the family. It's almost like, you hear these stories, or as a rabbi who is involved in shidduchim, people ask a certain family, and then they say, oh, they had a son in rehab. And it's almost like what went wrong, like their parents must not be so good because, you
Right.
know, now I'll turn to them and say, well, what if it wasn't a mental illness, but a physical illness, right? Right, where they had a son who had cancer or had cerebral or something like that. Would you still have that same kind of blame or kind of negative association towards them, or would you have more kind of pity and rahmanas, or even just pride for what they went through?
Right.
That's
Right.
part of it, is that addiction is a disease, and although people do start off by, I guess, choosing to try different substances, once the addiction takes hold, it's really out of their control, and it's not their fault, and it really could happen to anyone. And
Right. Yeah, it's, we were saying this comparing it to the physical illness. I've had people say to me, like, who are struggling with severe, suicidal ideation, I wish I had cancer. I wish I had a terminal illness because then it would be easier for me to talk about it. Like, I don't know. I just want to take that moment to like give light and hope to anyone who's feeling that way because it is very frightening, I think, to live with, like, in our community, especially, I think, to live with a struggle and be so afraid to share because, oh, they're going to just think I'm dramatic. They're going to think I'm just attention seeking. I'm right. Like if I had a terminal illness, they wouldn't think that I'm just trying to get attention from them. But struggling with addiction or thinking about wanting to die by suicide makes me like a dramatic bad person.
yeah, it's awful. It's sad. It's a double standard. And not only do the people with the physical illness, not have that shame and stigma, but they get a ton of support. They have meal trains, right? People are kind of rallying together. Let me take your kids, and can you imagine if we started a WhatsApp, going around, or so and so is struggling with depression or with addiction and they need, support like that, or even to heal him.
I mean, can we start that? Can that be the thing that we make out of this podcast is like, please encouraging communities to start. And it is, it's interesting. I was thinking about something that you were saying earlier in the conversation about, straddling the experience of being both a rabbi of the community and a psychologist, where you're really seeing the
Right.
inner world of what people are going through. And, I do support a lot of people in my community. And sometimes I'll walk into shul and I'll have that same moment. And I'm like, these other people have no idea what this person who's sitting next to them is going through. And how would they be treating each other differently if, not, hopefully with more compassion, hopefully with more love, if they were aware of what
Right.
they were struggling through.
Right. No, that's a great point. And I think it really comes down to really assigning blame, that for some reason we think that mental illness is a choice and that people made poor decisions in order to almost like deserve what's happening to them. And we
Right.
would never say the same thing for someone who has cancer or something like that.
Yeah.
And we can start to get people to look at it differently. I'll share one quick, story about that. There was a story about a man that I heard about, a married man with kids, and he was kind of like laying low for a while, wasn't coming to shul. People weren't sure what's going on with him, and word got around that he had some type of disease. I think it was some type of bacterial infection. It was like messing with his brain, and everyone was very scared and worried for him. I knew on the inside that he was actually having clinical depression.
Wow.
He just didn't want to say, or his wife didn't want to say. So they said, he's in bed, he has to rest, and people rallied together and supported the family. But he couldn't say that he had depression. He didn't feel like he would get the same kind of sympathy and support, where his wife didn't feel that way.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so telling.
yeah, yeah.
That's really very telling.
Yeah. So we could look. You're the powerhouse. You have these amazing organization and all this
I,
amazing work that you're
I
doing.
mean, listen, we're all just, to quote Ram Dass, we're all just trying to walk each other home.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Just, I always tell people that I feel like Hashem picked this for me. Like he was like, here, this is what you're going to do with your life. Go into the world and do the thing.
Well, clearly, you're clearly good at it, and I'm, passionate about it, and whatever reason, kind of got you here.
Yeah.
We're all grateful for it.
Thank you. Thank you. So my last question as we're wrapping up is, do you have a message of hope to share with anyone who's struggling right now?
Yeah, of course. For everyone who's listening, I hope, so far everything we've been talking about has been, helpful. Just looking at, amazing people from Tanakh or amazing people in the world who have been struggling, and how there is hope and there is things that could help.
Yeah.
The first course of action is really just to get help, either professionally through seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist, but really organizations. My wife is kind of my protector of my time and kind of my boundaries. So I do get a lot of messages from people in the community, people who know me, like, hey, Rabbi, or hey, Doctor, or hey, Rabbi Doctor, depending on how they address me and kind of know what's coming next. I have a grandson, I have a nephew, I have a cousin, I have a friend who's really struggling. Can we speak for a few minutes on the phone? And some of I do try to help people, maybe, too much, but my wife always reminds me, like, there's so many amazing organizations that are dedicated towards, being kind of the operator to refer people to the right people. And I think in the Jewish community we do take care of each other, and there's so many, there might even be too many. There's Darche Bina, all these different names of different things that I get letters in the mail for, that are trying to support specific communities. So you're not alone. There's a whole wealth of people out there, organizations, and really therapies that we know that really work. Just like if someone, again, going back to the medical analogy, if someone, God forbid, had a diagnosis of cancer, like right away, you'd be researching the top hospitals, the top doctors, all the treatments, talking to people who had chemo, had radiation, and what to do. So you're not alone. Don't try to be a hero to try and do this alone. Recognize that you have a problem, and also recognize that there's so much out there that could be helpful for you. Just taking the steps to make that first phone call to a professional, which is very difficult, will already start to help you feel better.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my
Thank you
pleasure.
so much for this and for all of your insight. And I feel like I have so much now that I want to think about from this conversation. So
Okay, good. Happy to do it again another time.
thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Heart to Heart. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know there is hope and help is within reach. Since 2019, the Long Short Road has been walking alongside at-risk individuals, offering trauma-informed programs, a non-emergency hotline, and a community that fosters healing. No one has to go through this alone, and we are here for you. Discover how the Long Short Road is changing lives. Visit www.thelongshortroad.com or email us at info@thelongshortroad.com to learn more. You can be part of this mission. Sponsorship opportunities for Heart to Heart are available. Honor a loved one, support your community, and help us make mental wellness resources accessible to those who need them most. Until next time, remember, love and connection are the greatest healers. This is Lee Yaffe reminding you, hope is here, healing is possible, and you are never alone. Together, we're walking this long, short road to a brighter future.